Welcome. Namaste, beautiful souls. My name is Sadhana. I am an intuitive reader and healer, and this is a series that started some weeks ago. I'm here today to carry on with this conversation. We're still working with different cards in the minor arcana, and I want you to know that in this card comparison series, I'm really open to taking requests and putting together pairs or even triplets of cards that you are having a challenging time working with. So please make sure that if you're watching the playback, you put your requests into the comments below, and that if you join us in the live chat today, that you can also put your requests in the chat, because I will review those and then start to make a list of all of your requests. Okay, so these videos are going to be about between 30 and 45 minutes, and I'm super happy to interact with you during the little mini lesson, and we can just kind of work through the challenges that you are having with these cards. That's why I'm doing these live, just so I can add that, the extra layers that have brought any kind of challenges to you in looking at the differences between these two cards. Hello, through Integrative Lens, welcome. I am doing well, thank you. All right, so today is the 7 and 9 of Wands. So I'm just going to turn the camera to the table so we can start to have a look at this energy. We did look at the 7 of Wands last week. This is from the Light Seers Tarot. Really beautiful depiction of this card. And the 9 of Wands in her deck is here as well too. Okay, so 7 and 9 of Wands. And I want to right away just kind of go into a couple of overview. Is that the right word? Basic background information for these cards. So first of all, we are in a masculine suit. So we're in an active suit, the suit of fire. This is the suit of will. Hello to Andy and Shannon and Sarah. Welcome. Thanks for joining me live today. Active suit of fire, right? So this is the suit of will. This is a suit of passion and drive. It's that fire that lights you up within. And so regardless of where we are in this suit, whether we're in a whether we're in a quieter card or a noisier card, there's still that rumbling, there's that rumbling within the volcano, and the fire is always lit here. Even in a quieter card, I think we're going to find that this energy is very, very vital in these two cards. The other thing that can be really useful when we're looking at cards and having a challenging time seeing the difference between two cards is to look at what their major arcana association is. And with the 7 of Wands, the association would be the Chariot. And with the 9 of Wands, the association, one of them, of course, would be the Hermit. There are other major arcanas that we can bring in as associations, but basically the 7 and the 9. And if we look at the major arcana associations, then we can see, now it depends what deck you are looking at. The Chariot can be a really challenging card, because if we're looking at a more traditional Chariot card, there is no movement. It's almost as if we are in a place before we act. The charioteer has not started to move. There's no wind movement in the hair. The sphinxes are seated, on the ground. So there isn't movement. But in many, many tarot decks, you're going to see some movement in the Chariot card. This is a card of really starting to move forward and to act in a way. This is one of the first levels up in the tarot, and we really get to go forward and act in a way that feels right. And with that connection with the 7, we get that kind of it's a fiery energy. The whole suit is a fiery energy, but this 7 of Wands has that that inner drive, right? That inner drive in full force. I'm going to show you some other variations in a minute, because Chris Ann's 7 of Wands is quite apparently quiet. The Hermit card is a receptive card. Of course, it is an odd number. Odd numbers are traditionally more active than even numbers, but the Hermit is a receptive card. It's a card of turning in. It's a card of going in. And the Nine of Wands is a relatively quiet card. I don't think I have ever seen a Nine of Wands where the person is doing something. This is an after the battle card. This is a pause in the action. It's a time of healing. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of regrouping. And there is a connection. You know, if you look at the Hermit and this Nine of Wands side by side, you can understand how one is influencing the other. And when we work with the tarot and we start to look across the numbers, the major, minor associations, we can really get some clear insight into what's going on. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to just briefly kind of build is this whole story of what's happening in the wands. So we have not looked at all of these in the card comparisons yet. So we came from the confrontation of the Five, and then after the confrontation of the five, we have some kind of success. Somebody won the confrontation. They are heading home. They are moving to the right, generally seen as the future. But I see this card as coming home, coming back to community, coming back to family, perhaps. Okay, so we go from confrontation to something that feels quite successful. And then when we get to the Seven, it's almost as if we didn't quite finish the work of the Five. And there's some reason to come back to that defensive position. Okay, we are on higher ground. Notice in the Five, we're all on the same level, but in the Seven, the figure in the card is on higher ground. There is a acceleration of energy in the Eight. It's almost like things really get stirred up and get going. And then when we look at the Nine of Wands, what do we see? You know, we see like we can't stay in the speed. We can't stay in the impetus, the speed really of the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands and cards that tend to move really, really quickly, you can't stay in them for a long time, right? It's like wild cats. Wild cats can go at tremendous speeds for a short period of time, and then they need to recharge. This is the natural energy of life. Yes, I can pull that out for you. I can pull that out for you while I'm talking. Andy, I will do that. Okay, so sometimes I think it helps to just remind yourself of the whole story. So that would be one strategy. And then another strategy would be to bring in the minor arcana associations. Okay, so Andy has just asked about the Nine of Wands in the Sasarabito, and I'm going to get the Seven of Wands in the Sasarabito too. So we're looking at something similar here. So just give me 1 second. So tell me what you see in this card, Andy. If I asked you to describe, and all of you, why don't you all just participate here? What do you see? How would you describe this Nine of Wands? So just let me know what you see here, because we might not all see the same thing. And I know that it's described in the guidebook, but I'm asking you what do you see? And then I'm going to get the Chariot and the Hermit in this card as well too. And if you have this deck, pull out your own, because it's a lot easier to look at it when you're looking at the actual cards that are on the screen. Of course, Chariot and Hermit are Not apparent. Okay. So anybody brave enough to put up a description? Not yet. Okay. Sorry, I want to find these cards so I can just do this whole story for you. You see, sometimes when we look at decks that take on a different perception. So there's the Hermit. I don't know why. The Chariot is 2 horses in this deck. It's quite a simple depiction of the Chariot. But I think it's good to see the perception, the whole perception of the artist. And if I don't find it on this pass, then we won't use it. Okay, that's weird. I can't find it. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wands down on the lower part of in this card, and then the axe, the handle of the axe, is the 7th wand. And so what we see in the 7 of wands is a very typical interpretation, right? Doesn't look so different from this 7 of wands. If you look at the 9 of wands, I see, so there's the 4 wands on this side, 4 wands on this side, 1 wand in the center with a strong bone. To me, this looks like a femur bone. It looks like like the big bone of the upper leg. It looks like one of the large bones of the body. And the bone, the strong bone that is part of the leg, is tied to that 9th wand. And it is, it's bound and it's supported. There is growth on that central wand. Okay. And then, okay, let's see what feels like. Bones are broken and they are being held by the wand. It's like staying strong and making it work even after injury. A human body, a body is being attacked by the wand. I struggle with the bound bone. Okay. So I see in the background here, I see the shape of a body. And in this deck, if you're familiar with this deck, I'm thinking of the 9 of Cups card. Look at the 9 of Cups card. And then look at the 9 of Wands. And superimpose one on top of the other. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So I see that same female body in the 9 of Wands. There is a softness and a healing energy to the 9 of Cups. There's this whole aspect of self-care, and this human is emerging from perhaps a lotus or a rose or something of high frequency, right? And then here we're seeing the internal landscape. The internal landscape of the person. In the 9 of Cups, we're seeing the external landscape. And I like what Through Integrative Lens said. So I liked the fact that the wand is strengthening the bone. What does the wand represent? Will, determination, passion. It has the creative energy. It has that spark of life energy to help mend and heal. Okay, so I get more of a healing energy in this particular card. I mean, I get a healing energy in a traditional 9 of Wands as well too. And then if you look at those 8 wands, to me, they look like ribs. I do not see them as wands attacking the body. I see them as the structure. And then if you look at the ribbons, if you look at the red ribbons, this could represent blood. This could represent the nervous system. It could represent connection. There's also a flow of energy. See how they're freely moving around in the card? So for me, this 9 of Wands in the Sasarai Bito is one of internal healing, internal repair. I like to compare it to that Nine of Cups because it really just gives you two different perspectives of something, of the same thing. And I don't know if you've ever put these two cards side by side. Wasn't my intention for today, but thank you for that. I want to go to some of your other comments. Sarah says there's a sense of paralysis. Good. Okay. I'm glad that that little insight helps. So yes, and let's look at a few other nine of wands, because it's not, I mean, if this were easy, I wouldn't be doing this series, right? If everybody could figure this out, you wouldn't have asked to compare these cards. Okay, so let's look at a couple of Nine of Wands. More traditional, and the card in the center is the Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Turian, which I'm going to use today in my live readings. I just got it yesterday, and I've just been waiting and waiting for this deck, watching it on Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so most Nine of Wands have, you know, and I also call this the card of the hero. And we never see, rarely do we see the hero resting. Rarely do we see the hero healing or in the hospital. You know, we see the hero at his potential, at his best. We see the hero charging through the scene of the crime, or charging through the war. We see the soldier strong and fighting and defending and protecting. But it's a natural pause. This has to happen. And for me, that comparison of the 6, 7, 8, 9 of Wands really helps to understand the natural ebb and flow of this energy. And the question for today is, well, what is the difference between the 9 and the 7? Because I guess people find that, so here's Anna's 7. I kind of want to get back to this question, that they look very similar. And yeah, they are. Of course, they're similar. It's the same suit. They're both odd numbers. There's a solo figure in each one. There's a bunch of wands in each one. But also remember that we have gone from a 7 to a 9. And what is 9? Right? What is 9? 9 is 3 threes. 9 is a number of completion. It is the third completion. It's almost as if the 9 of Wands, it's, you know, when I think of the threes and I lean into the sacredness of the threes, the triple trinity here, I feel like this is the end of a spiritual quest. We have, you know, when you're on a spiritual quest, there's a lot of challenging things that we have to endure and go through if we really want to awaken, right? And in this one, it's like, oh my God, I thought this was going to be a lot easier. I had no idea what I was going to have to go through. There's something also about wands, you know, that whole magic wand kind of energy of the wands and the fire, and the connection of the energy of wands to spirit. If you think of the magician card, I really think of the fire of the magician card, and the wand, the right hand, you know, the wand above and the hand below, and the effect of energy. The effect of energy. We can never discount when we are using energy, whether it's physical energy because we've been in a battle, or whether we've been using a lot of energy because we're doing very active spiritual work, it's hard on the body. It's hard on the nervous system. And so that's what this card represents. It's an acknowledgement of how hard you've been working. It's an acknowledgement of your tenacity, of your courage. It's an acknowledgement of your, those Dharma dolls, the Japanese dolls that they go over and then they come back up. They're kind of have a round bottom, right? This is the card of the Dharma doll, right? It's like the card where you're not completely knocked over, you're kind of on your way back up. Recently, the Nine of Wands came out as an intention to set for this new moon for me. And the action to take was the Hermit. Okay, so the intention and the Hermit. Well, if you want a quick interpretation, I would suggest that this is a time to count your blessings. It's a time to acknowledge all that it's like it's an accounting of your experiences. And with the Hermit, I could see this as 2 weeks of deep, deep journal work, deep introspection because perhaps you haven't been acknowledging these little successes along the way, or maybe there's also an element of self-care that is really important at this time. And you've come full circle in this suit. And so we need to check in. And I can't let go, with the Hermit and the spiritual connection. When I am doing pranayama work, I'm scrolling along the bottom is the course that starts Wednesday night. And one of the things that I teach in this course is that we can't level up our breathing practices. We can't level up if you know anything about pranayama practices, there's aspects of retention or doing more repetitions or just doing the practices for over a longer period of time. We can't level up the stages until we're prepared for it. And I feel like a little bit of the Nine of Wands energy is also connected to the Tower card or any of the cards in your deck that have lightning in them. This is a symbol to me of the nervous system. And we need to be really, really mindful of the nervous system. And we can also see the negative effects of not heeding the 9 in many of the 10 of Wands as well, too. Great. I'm glad you guys are having this conversation. And welcome. Hello to Kristen. Yes, and this is a really, really important point. And energy. So when I'm thinking of the Magician card, I think of the Magician as a medium, right? So the physical body of the Magician is the medium. The Magician is a clear vessel. The Magician is a 1, right? So fairly pure of energy and able to allow energy to move through him, much like, a Reiki healer or something. And what is my point here? As the energy passes through, it will affect us. And I guess the other thing is that energy is energy is energy. So whether we're talking about the physicality of energy or the spiritual energy, it's all energy. So there's a lot of important points when we're looking at this kind of card. I'm pointing to my screen right there. Exactly. Very, very hard work. Hello, Lily Valley. Welcome. Okay, good. I'm glad that resonates. Okay. So are we good then? Let's look at one more deck before I leave you for today. This is the Textured Tarot. So more of a pip deck. I'm going to stand up and do this because sometimes when I do this, I touch the wrong thing. There we go. In the background, in the 7 of Wands, we have what to me looks like two aspects of self, quite angry. And I don't necessarily see the Seven of Wands as a card of anger. It's almost like in the Seven of Wands, you realize how invested you are in what it is you decided to create in this part of your journey. Right? So remember this, the wands is a creative force. It's a fiery force. You are driven, and you've had this drive with you for the whole suit. And there's may have been some aspects of external aspects of trying to break you down. But by the time you get to the seven, you realize how strong you are. And that's why you stand up and defend yourself. And so in this card, I'm not sure that it's not one of my favorite cards in this deck. You know, I don't see this as an angry card. I see this as a claiming one's rights, claiming one's self. And perhaps occasionally an angry voice is necessary. And it's funny because in this Chariot card in the textured tarot, I see a rather passive charioteer and not much is happening. Yeah. So this is, I often say, if I were to create a tarot deck, eventually I would love to be part of that kind of project, because I think it's important that the energy of the sevens in your deck has some connection to the Chariot card. One of the reasons I love the decks like the Marielle Tarot, it's just so very well done. And I think even if we're doing an RWS clone, we can bring in that aspect as well too. Okay, so in the texture tarot, this is the 9. This is the 9. And so a little bit different energy. I feel that we need to watch how the figures are standing, sitting, kneeling, moving, not moving. Like all of this can affect the energy of the reading. And I really like that in this card, we see one hand on the ground. I'm just going to look at it really. And it's a fist on the ground. And there is a very determined look on the face. It's almost as if this person is ready to go again. And so I might interpret this card a little bit differently than another 9 of Wands. The red on the ground, the choice of the red fabric is also really interesting. And I have never really seen this as a pool of blood as so much as the red of the earth, the connection to the earth. So his fist is on the ground, connecting to the earth, connecting to the pulse of the earth. And perhaps that's also part of the medicine of this card. Have you ever noticed in this card, usually the wands are really starting to grow. There's a lot of growth in these wands. So there's more leaves on the wands in the 9 than in the 7. So this is also indicative of our force growing, right? That internal strength is building. And what is the card between the 7 and the 9? Right? It's strength. And what do we need to get from the 7 to the 9? Strength. Right? And of course, I'm talking RWS. And not RWS use that, but I like that whole idea of strength between the 7 and the 9. Let's look at a couple other of your comments. 7 of Wands, say loud our opinions. Okay, yes. Yes and no. Yes and no. This is the Hermit in this deck, by the way, in case you haven't seen it. It's an absolutely beautiful card. I want to say sometimes. And The thing that I like about this card in the Light Seers Tarot, it's that, oh, how can you even put words around this? This is like, so many of you are tarot readers, right? You're doing spiritual work. You are invested in your spiritual practices. And it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge for most of us claiming this. There's been a process of, coming out of the tarot closet, perhaps shifting organized from an organized religion to a more spiritual practice. There's been a journey of being with family members or community members who didn't approve or agree or even know what you were doing. And it might not be tarot, it might be something else. But there's, in this Seven of Wands, it's like, I know within myself, even in this card, right? Even in the RWS card, it's about claiming that fire within, owning. It's about owning your beliefs. And while this appears to be an active card, I really feel like, so will is an eternal investment, right? It's an internal fire. And it's drawn in this card as an as an action. But I see it as so much more than that, right? And that's why I use the word claiming. It's like claiming your owning your truth, owning your belief, owning your will, owning your spirit, and allowing your spirit to be free. And you can see in that Eight of Wands how that will is just, it's just set free, right? And it's one of the hardest elements to manage, because fire needs to be contained. Fire needs to be controlled. It can't run wild, right? Fire needs a container. It needs the container of the human body. It needs the container of a fire pit. It needs the container of a candle holder. It needs the container of love. It needs the container of family, right? So fire is fire is at one of its highest potentials when it is contained in some way. Does that make sense? Okay. And I'm going to go back to your comments, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do for next week. And I just saw this comment here. So yeah, so boundary would be another word for container. That makes perfect sense. Hello to Snow Fox Tarot. Seven of Wands in the Lily White makes more sense now. The fire within and the fire of will. Okay, so let's look at one more deck and then we'll see what we've got here. So there's the 9 and the Lily White. So we see the Fox. The Fox it's an incredible card. I feel like the Fox is, the Fox is containing that fire, that it's a beautiful, beautiful card. Okay, so let's find the 7 of Wands. I'm glad you all have the same decks that I do. That makes this conversation so much easier. So there's the 8 of Wands. So we can kind of see how the Fox would have had to, right? Again, another animal that can't go forever and ever running free and wild. I mean, foxes can probably have more long-term. Okay, I have already looked through this pile. Okay, last, I will find it. 7 of Wands. So take your time, today, and go pull out some more 7 and 9 of Wands, and look at the 5 in this deck. this is a really interesting Five of Wands, how the wands are containing the fox. There's the Chariot, the 3. Oh, I do like this suit of wands in this deck. Okay, 6 of Wands. Can't find the 7, I'm sorry. Oh dear. It's funny because I know this deck so well. All right. I have your list of requests, and I think I'm going to do a video on the 9s next week. And then I will start to do some of the card comparisons you've asked for the major arcana. So yeah, go ahead and put some of your other requests into the chat. That's so weird that I seem to be, I've looked through this multiple times. Okay, so I will leave that to you to do your own study on that. Weird. Oh, yes it is. Here we go. So this is a 7 of Wands in the lily white. And you know what? I like the rain in this too. I like the fact that there is a storm going around this fire, but the fire is still burning brightly despite the external. And that's what I see in Chris Ann's card. I think that's a really kind of a beautiful way to end this discussion. Okay, so here, this is kind of a nice aha thing here. I like it when these aha moments come through. No matter what, see how she is in a bubble, like a bubble of protection. So no matter what is going on externally, that fire can burn brightly within. But it needs that container of, thank you for that clue. It needs that container of faith. Right? So maybe faith is also the container. Trust in something greater. So trust can be the container. You know, the container doesn't have to be a fire pit or a glass candle holder. The container can be the structure of the practices that you have to continue to grow your faith and grow your spirituality. Yeah. Love that. Oh, that sits really, really well with me. And then we see in the 9, right, the need for quiet. The need for quiet and the need for integration. So thank you. Thank you for mentioning those cards. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'll be back at 12 to do live readings, and I'm going to use Tarot of the Abyss. I'm so excited. I'm going to say that even though I've had this deck for less than 24 hours, I have been waiting for it for so long and spent a lot of time with a lot of the artwork. I just feel so privileged to have this in my collection. And one of the oracle decks that I feel I want to bring out with it, it's almost as if this oracle deck has been waiting for this deck. Just the line art and the pencils. Anyway, you can see all that at 12 o'clock. And if you're interested in taking this course that's scrolling across the bottom, if you did not take the intuition course level 1, I would say that if you have any kind of meditation practice, if you've done any kind of breath practices, and you have some sort of contemplative practice already that you do, then you're more than welcome to hop in. If you are an absolute beginner and you've never sat quietly, you've never done any breathing practices, then I would wait until the next time the level 1 course comes up, because that'll be a lot easier for you. All right. There's also a Reiki class that's coming up in July, and I'm offering this both in person and online. So there'll be some people on Zoom. Oh, good. Yeah, I just can't imagine anybody not loving Anna's work. She's just such a gorgeous, I just love her artwork. The so yeah, so the Reiki class I'm offering both online and in person. If you are in a very, very different time zone than me, it might be a little bit difficult because it's a lot of hours throughout the day. And one of the things that's come up through the whole COVID experience is that people are wanting to, it's kind of like that Seven of Wands energy. People are wanting to reclaim their spiritual energy. And if you have taken Reiki years and years ago and you've never used it, or you've kind of dabbled in it but never actually practiced it, it's a really good opportunity to reconnect with this and start to trust yourself, as the healer, as the one who can be the channel for energy. And I think it's kind of incredible in the Facebook group. So I have a Facebook group, Healing with Integrative Healing with Sadhana's, or Sadhana's Healing Room. And I'm just looking for the card. Where did it go? The card for this week. So I'm pulling archetype cards in the Facebook group. Kim's deck, and the archetype card for this week is the healer. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So this is the archetype we're working with this week, the healer. Anyway, I just love all these little connections. I'm going to leave you, and I'll see some of you very, very soon. Please put your requests into the comments below, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.